Will I get to our guests? It's funny, like I know traditionally with live shows you kind of do the big guest, and we'll do that again, I'm sure, but we just sort of thought to ourselves, we really like the people we talk to every week, and then it's funny, we do a live show and we just ignore them. So we thought, why don't we do a little live show with our regulars and chat a bit about them, and then we'll get on to the Six Nations. So they need no introduction. Eddie O'Sullivan is with us. He is coaching over in Brown University these days, but Eddie, of course, was Ireland coach for 6.5 years. 3 Triple Crowns in 4 years, got Ireland up to 3rd in the world rankings 2 different years, did an amazing job, and we love having him on Indo Sport. We have Luke Fitzgerald, a bit of left wing crossover. He's on the left wing with Will Slattery, and Luke, obviously, an amazing player at the schools, phenomenal player, great Ireland career, Lions career, Leinster career, and you know, I think one of the best pundits around, and not afraid to call it when some other people find it harder. You know, Luke will stick that knife in your back, no problem. And then, of course, Ian Madigan. You know, Ian, I think, and we do see it in emails from people, Ian's just been amazing as a pundit. You kind of sit there some days and you're like, this is like a PhD in rugby, you know? And also had an amazing career, played for Ireland 31 times, 150 Leinster appearances, and then took the road less travelled, Bordeaux and Bristol and Ulster. You know, so when he retired in 24 and we were starting this podcast, it was a very quick call to say, will you come on? And thankfully he said yes. So we're thrilled they're with us generally. We are thrilled they're with us this evening. Would you welcome, please, Eddie O'Sullivan, Luke Fitzgerald, Ian Madigan, everybody!
Cheers, Joe. Thanks for the intro.
Luke, when I said you're not afraid to stick the knife into people's back, that came out so much worse than I meant.
Yeah, I usually like to go first, front on, to be honest with you. But I see you've given me the big couch here. I know I've got a little bit bigger since I retired, but that's a bit unnecessary. It's been shot after shot so far, Joe, so hopefully it improves from this point.
Well, I thought, you know, the week that's in it, it's a bit miserable. Let's up the energy. Let's have a little team talk. Let's get a bit of national pride going. And I know just the thing. It's 2007. We're in the dressing room at Croke Park. Eddie O'Sullivan has some things to say to Irish people everywhere.
Pull in. The most important thing today, lads, the most important thing today is when you fucking walk off that pitch, you look in the mirror, and say, I fucking put everything, every fucking last ounce of energy, every fucking drop of blood on the fucking line today. That's all you can fucking do. But you've got to fucking make it happen. It will not happen because you think about it. You've got to fucking act in it. We fucking take the game to them from the very off. You fucking set down a marker. You don't take a fucking step back. It's not a fucking option here. Now get it through your head. We go after these guys like there's no fucking tomorrow. Let's go.
I love that. My strongest memory of that documentary is just you screaming, on your feet, on your feet, on your feet.
When you're my size, you have to shout very loud.
Yeah. That must be, I mean, it's the wrong word to use, but like there's something fun about that as well, isn't there? Like that's kind of living, those kind of moments.
Yeah, the most striking aspect of that game was two things. Was the fear of losing and the relief of winning. Like it was one of those moments where there was no going back. Like you were only going to the first time once, and the pressure was pretty extraordinary. I always give credit to the team that day because the performance was absolutely off the charts. Based on every game, you'd have 5 or 6 things you want to get done, and sometimes you rarely get more than 4 or 5 of them done, and that's probably often good enough to win the game, and you get out the other side of it. And if they drop off to 2 or 3, you're in trouble, or unless you probably lose. But I go back in that game and they hit every marker we set down. It was just unbelievable. I was worried that because my memory as well is that as they were rolling up the red carpet after the anthems, and John Hayes is crying like a baby, and I'm thinking, does someone tell him there's a game starting here in a few minutes' time, you know? And, but in fairness, yeah, that was probably, and the relief after was palpable, like, because people said, oh, you must have been over the moon. well, that wasn't the main emotion. The main emotion was the relief of it, you know. But I mean, looking back on it now, you can take a bit of joy in it. But at the time, there's not much room for that.
No, I wouldn't think so. So this first section is a little bit like down memory lane and where your careers intersect, and we'll talk Six Nations in part 2. 20 years ago, 2006, a little bit later on in the year, you gave him his debut.
That's right.
Straight out of school.
6 months, Lukey, wasn't it? Just out the gap.
I don't know if you could class my efforts in school as being there, but yeah, it was. I finished in school then, yeah. Yeah, it was great. Like, great memories. Like, I have huge time. Obviously, for Eddie, it's always a soft spot. I mean, person who gives you your shot or kind of sees something in you, in any walk of life. But yeah, it was amazing. It was a great day out, actually. I really
That was the last game in Lansdowne.
Last game in Lansdowne against
Lansdowne Road.
Yeah, the Pacific Islands. Remember, they had the three of them kind of came together for
Was it true you were the 999th Irish player to be capped that day?
I don't know. That's terrible. I'm really bad at all that stuff. I'm either the 1001 or I'm 999.
I'll check my notes.
You're 999.
Check him, yeah.
You're 999.
Am I 999?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So come here, because I don't remember that super well. And it's 20 years ago now. We have a lot of 18 to 34-year-old demographic in our listenership.
Okay.
Were you like this kind of, you've got to see this kid. You've got to see this kid in 6 years. The greatest thing we've ever seen. Like, was the whole country, how did you find him?
I can help answer that because I was.
I'm not answering that.
Yeah, I was a year behind Luke in school, so still regards me as a fifth year, even when we meet up now at 35, whatever. But so I went to Willow Park in 2001, so Luke would have been 2002, and then played Junior Cup for 2 years, played Senior Cup for 3 years, and would have watched him in the stands, not knowing him, but everyone in the school would have talked about him. And your footwork, your power was just off the charts. Everyone knew who Luke Fitzgerald was. And I remember in sixth year, the kind of rumour went around that Munster were coming in to try and swoop you away from Leinster, offered him a full contract when he was in sixth year in school. So, like, that was...
That actually did happen, but we used it as leverage to get a Leinster deal. So my father actually looked through the contract and realised there was a mistake in the contract, basically. So what I did was I put basket weaving down in UCC on my... probably would have the only thing I would have got, actually, after my Leaving Cert points. But I used to put a university option down in a Munster university, and it was basically the contract was null and void if you decided to go that direction. So that was how we kind of leveraged off the two. But there was they came in, because Donald Lenihan was looking after the academy at that time in Munster, I think, or he was involved somewhere, and he's a very close friend of my dad. So you're actually right in that one. Okay. It was an interesting one.
And you jumped in and said, this kid's ready to go.
Yeah, because he ticked all the boxes. He was electric speed, change of pace, pretty brave for his age. You know, put his heavy one, put a crowbar. You know, so he was a guy. It was easy to switch him in. But it's funny. My best memory of Luke was the World Cup in 2015. I was well gone out of the scene. I still remember, if I think back, is that you came off the bench against Argentina, and that game wasn't going really well, and you rescued the game. Like I think you made one and scored one, or you. Yeah.
You
changed the game. I know you changed the game.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was had a couple of big moments. I mean, I think as a team, we kind of. It's funny, you have moments, I think, that do give people a lift. But I mean, you well know better than anyone as such a established coach. It does take sometimes a moment just to get a team going, but it is very much a team. So the one thing I love about rugby is I hate when someone says, "Oh, it's one person kind of does it," because to me it's the best team sport of all. You know, you got every size on the pitch. You got I was going to say the fat guys, but look at me now. But the small guys at scrum half, you got the tall guys. There's a place for everyone on a rugby pitch, and I always love that about it. So I think, there was a couple of good moments for me there, but Ian was obviously on the pitch as well. We were having a tough time against a really good Argentinian team. I was lucky I had a few good moments, but very much, the team got together and were able to rally. Yeah.
Like, obviously in that game, we got off to a terrible start, and like, I love the strategy side, love talking about it now, but sometimes it can just be as simple as this guy's running hot, which Luke was, and get him the ball as much as possible, and your chances of winning are going to go up. And that was very much the case that day, and we nearly did it. Like, we gave it a good go coming back, and I still think back, we had a great opportunity to score towards the end of the game.
The start was what?
The start was tough, and the way sport goes, you expend so much energy trying to get yourself back into the game. We had a chance to get our noses back in front, didn't take it, and then the game got away from us in the final kind of 10, 15 minutes.
We'll come back to 15, because don't worry, we have various videos from the 2015 World Cup, which you two both played in. Is it true you fell asleep in an Eddie O'Sullivan team meeting?
That actually is true.
Now we're talking.
And don't worry, it wasn't actually Eddie's team talk. It was nothing to do with that. That was, as you could see, Eddie's a great orator. Just a hot room in Killiney, long day of training. Yeah, and in fairness to him, I was just saying this, and we were chatting about it there. I was saying he did let me off the hook in front of the team. He clearly saw me because I was actually in the front. I didn't even do it in the back. Like, what a complete clown.
It wouldn't have mattered. I used to be a teacher.
Snoring would have given it away as well. But he actually just hit me. So I was like, oh, I think I might have got away with this one here, you know, because a few of the lads were like, Jesus, buddy. And so we get through that evening. He doesn't say anything to me. We have a team meeting the next morning. I'm like, perfect, away, scot-free with that one, lovely. As we're getting off the bus, who's waiting for me? I'm at the back of the bus, the last one off, and I see your man. He goes, I won't repeat what he said, but basically, don't let that happen again, or you're gone. But it was he did me solid on that one. He didn't do me in front of the team, which was nice. Yeah,
you did sleep well that night before I met you.
It was such a fun kind of period in Irish rugby. Like, you know, even those documentaries, the 90s had been so bad, and, you know, the O'Driscoll arrival in Paris, and then all these other players started arriving. It was suddenly just like really exciting, and like you've got the Munster pack, and you've Rog and the Leinster backline, and a lot of big characters, and the 3 Triple Crowns in 4 years. Like, I sometimes think with you, 07 can overshadow what was an amazing, like, 6 years in the main. Do you look back on it now and kind of feel that way about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to recognise as a coach that when you finish, probably people remember your bad days better than your good days. It's just the way it is, you know. And unless you're lucky enough to check out at a high. I've always said that being a rugby coach is like being a high jumper, and you're trying to clear the bar, you know, and someday you're going to knock the bar and you're out. But the trick is to get the bar as high as you can before you knock it. So I look back at it and think, I actually think I raised the bar a bit in that time, you know, from where we were to the point where, like, the thing people always ask when I start is, what's your ambition? You know, what are you going to do? And I said, I want to make the team consistent. And so, well, what's consistent? I said, well, if you're consistent, you win the games you're supposed to win, and you win some of the games you're not supposed to win. So we took a few scalps there. We took South Africa twice. We took Australia twice. But Australia were actually a good team. And so, sorry, but it's the reality. But you know, you look back at those, and they were kind of benchmarks for us. But the thing with that then is, obviously, expectation grows and grows and grows. So that's the facts of life. The more successful you are, the more expectations around it. Like, expectation can turn into a big stick, you know, and you get beaten with it at the end. But that's that sport. So,
I mean, even I vividly remember there's a 4-year period, including that Croke Park game, the dressing room we showed, where you beat England every year, you know. And we've got one which is 20 years ago next month. And it's it's just, I'm playing it in part because you're here, because you're in the coach's box. You're like, you know, you're just, you can feel
everybody experience.
Yeah. It's just so like, yeah, brilliant. So this is 06. The unbelievable, and you can kind of see what a fun team this Ireland team was. This is the Shane Horgan try in the corner to win the game, last few seconds.
Stringer still has, Ireland still have, Horgan has another opportunity. Is he there? Referee and Eddie O'Sullivan look at each other. Watch the feet. The feet look good. Is the ball grounded? Every inch of Horgan. Yes, it must be.
Okay, give it to me.
You may award the try. Try given. You try given. Ireland. Shane Horgan is the hero, and what a hero. That must be it. That must be it. It is. Ireland's Day. On this St. Patrick's weekend, they've wrapped up a Triple Crown for 2006.
the kind of around wide of a fierce jubilation. One of the reasons there was a lot of jubilation around that Triple Crown was because we'd had a horrible 05. Like we lost a Triple Crown in Cardiff to when Mike Ruddock was coach to Wales, and won the first Triple Crown, or our first Grand Slam of that era. So we had a poor Six Nations. Then the Lions tour happened, which was like dumpster fire. I was on that tour. It was like an absolute, in New Zealand, we got hockeyed. And then that autumn was another disaster because New Zealand that time were almost untouchable. I remember they came to Europe on that tour, and they basically slaughtered everybody. In fact, they beat Wales by 50, and then they came to Lansdowne Road the following week and made 14 changes and absolutely demolished us. Now, the other double down there was Dricko missed that whole autumn because he had his shoulder blown out on the Lions tour, and Paul O'Connor hurt his back. So that autumn, it was a big Six Nations, and that was the last game of the championship, and we'd lost to France, we'd fallen behind and nearly came back. So that was the last game, and then to score. But the actually most traumatic part of that game was after Shaggy's try, because we knew we had to get a try, so we had a scrum in the middle of the field. We knew the wingers would play high because they knew we had to run, they thought we had to run. But Raj put a peach with a kick in over the top. Dricko gets on the end of it, hits Shaggy. Shaggy cuts in field. Then Raj cleans out a ruck, which is actually he actually cleaned out a ruck, a very important ruck. And Shaggy had to recycle a short set, and there's a great pass from strings, and he scores. But they stopped the clock. The clock thing was a bit less managed then. Stopped the clock to check, you may award a try. So there's a minute and a half left on the clock, and I'm in the stand, I'm going to send a message on to Roger Mikey McGurn, milk the clock, make the whole minute off it, as long as you can to kick the conversion. So Roger milks it down, and then I remember Niall Donovan said to me, do you think he'll make this? I said, I put my house in it, because Roger's kind of kicker. He might miss one. I think he missed one earlier that day in front of the sticks, but if you give him one for the whole bag of chips, he'll make it. And he was out on the right side. So he nails it anyway, and I'm thinking, okay, there's 30 seconds left. So all we do is take it down, fiddle with it for a few seconds, kick it out, game over. So we tell the team, kick it out, game over, line out. And look, the clock, there's only a minute left. He forgot to start the clock after he said, you may award a try.
Okay.
So we think, okay, we win the next line out. Play with that, kicked it out, another line out. I nearly got sick. I wanted to throw up all over Ger Carmody. And then eventually they won a line out, and they came at us and they turned it over, we hacked it out. So there was a fair bit of relief around that. That was the context of that was, we'd had such a terrible 05 at Six Nations autumn. The Lions tour in between injuries, we're changing the team. So that's the reason that was such a great day out, in terms of getting over the hump. And I felt we were back on the horse again at that stage.
Do you know, reading through, not to relitigate the 07 World Cup because it's overly talked about, but I came across an interview you gave in December after the 07 World Cup, and it's amazing from this vantage point, just how honest you were in it. So you're talking to Peter O'Reilly. This is the 23rd of December 07.
Yeah.
2 days before Christmas.
Yeah.
Ireland haven't got out of the pool, France and Argentina. And so you say, and this is you still as Ireland head coach, look, I made a balls of the World Cup.
Absolutely.
Hands up, it went badly wrong. I now know why. I'm not hiding behind anything. I got a strategic aspect of our build-up wrong, and it hurt us badly. And you were talking about, of the 12 weeks build-up, too much on fitness, and you would have got another couple of rugby matches in to get rugby fitness up. But I just hadn't remembered that kind of just blunt honesty in the job 07. Joe Schmidt in 19 sort of wrote a book, said, we didn't do anything wrong. Don't ask me why it went wrong, but it was all fine, and that was that. It was really kind of brave to come out and just say, I made a balls of the World Cup.
Well, everybody knew we'd screwed it up, So why would I say the opposite to that? I mean, it was if you think the history of how that balls up happened was that in 03 we were beaten up physically in Australia. We just, we couldn't compete physically. Argentina nearly beat us in Adelaide. I mean, we beat them by 1 point. Raj kicked a penalty. Carletto dropped a goal from 50 metres. My life flashed before me, and at the Adelaide Oval. And then the last play of the game, they got the wing around the corner, and I'd have put my house in Garvin Dempsey, nearly put him into the back tier of the stand, and the game was over. So we almost like bombed in that World Cup. We got beaten up in the quarter-final by France. Now, we nearly beat Australia in that one. Chums had a drop goal that went the wrong side of the post. We could have nearly won that group, and at the same time, we lost Australia by a point, we beat Argentina by a point. So that World Cup, but the one thing we came back and said, like, we're not fit for purpose here physically. So that was the emphasis, and Liam Hennessy came in, there was a full focus. The other thing we screwed up on is, there was supposed to be a game against South Africa. South Africa pulled out. We didn't play enough of games. And there was an element as well that injuries, we didn't have a lot of depth. Like Jordan Murphy broke his leg before the '03 World Cup up in Scotland. Shaggy nearly blew out his knee in the warm-up game in Scotland as well. So I was trying to mind them, but it was definitely a mistake not to play more games. And ever since, I mean, the World Cup in 2011, when they won the pool, they played 4 games after the 2011 World Cup, and they lost them all. But it was getting the bad stuff out. So we went into the World Cup undercooked, and that was the price. And the double factor was we were in a shocking group. We were in this group with France and Argentina, who went on to finish 3rd and 4th. Like, we might have got away with it if we had maybe just France or Argentina in the group, but that was the group of death. So that was it. It was obvious what went wrong. So when I was asked, I said, yeah, we made a balls of it, and that was the balls of, it wasn't anything else. And at the time, there was a lot of talk that there was overtraining and the team were fighting, and there was all sorts of horsemen you were flying around, but nothing to do with that at all. But
Yeah.
it was the Celtic Tiger era, so no story gets left untold. But actually, that's the context of that 07 World Cup. It just we got the foundations of what we're trying to do wrong, and we were in a terrible group, and that might screw up. Like I have to take responsibility for that. I was in charge of that deal, and I got it wrong. So when Peter asked me that question, I said, yeah, absolutely, I made a balls of it.
Yeah.
They're the facts.
Well, there was another. Well, no, I think there's an argument. You're not necessarily fitness expert. Like it's an overall decision. How do we get rugby fit? It's tough to put it just on one person. It's all your fault, There was a quote I saw in Tom English's book No Borders in 2015, and just to wrap up on kind of this topic, I was kind of struck by this. I didn't know you felt this way. So, and I don't know if you still feel this way. You said, the perception of me in Ireland is bad. Do you remember saying this?
Yeah.
I know it's bad. You say there's a legacy there from Warren Gatland. The perception is that I'm a narcissistic control freak who bullies people. All that stuff's been written about me, but I have a good relationship with the players I coached. I think there's respect there. She said, that doesn't tally with my perception of you or what I think the public sees.
It's interesting because I was reading the book, actually I contributed to it, Brendan Fanning, Touching Distance. It was recently published. And at the end of the chapter he was doing on me, he kind of concluded at the time that my problem was I didn't have the soft skills, around the team. Which is probably fair, I would never have been called soft. But I think where we were at the time, you go back 20 years, we're trying to get the team to a point where they were performing consistently. We had limited depth in the squad. We had to manage our resources. Also the fact I got a bad reputation because I was the guy, with Liam Hennessy, we instituted the player management system. That system was built around 2004 or 5, where the number of games you played, for example, it was fairly simple. It wasn't as complex as it is now. Effectively, players didn't play any more than 22 to 25 games. The second thing is they got 4 weeks holidays after the summer tour. They got an 8-week pre-season, which meant they didn't start the playing for their province until the end of September. And the provinces went bananas because they were losing players. This hadn't been done before. So I was pushed up with RFU to lead the charge on that. So I was public enemy number 1 with the provinces. Okay. Like I've been at meetings with, remember Alan Solomons at the time, and there was blood on the walls because I was fighting my corner. And my point was, if we trash these guys to death, the end of the season they're written off. The other thing I used to do is after the Heineken Cups, just before Christmas, we'd go off to the sun. They do it now. Everyone thinks it's a great idea. I brought that in.
Okay.
So there was all these things that were put in at the time that weren't popular with the provinces. They were untried, but it was all about building. So I would say, like, yeah, it would have been nice if I had soft skills, but I was juggling a lot of balls at the time, and soft skills wasn't at the top of the list because we were so many other things to fix. So that was probably how I got the name of being a bit of a hard ass,
Okay.
But I would say, if looking back at it, there are times I probably could have been softer, but maybe at times I was too direct with people. But I was always honest with guys. I always told them what I thought, and they'd never wonder what I was thinking. I'd always tell them exactly. Now maybe that doesn't come across that well as well. People maybe want to be treated differently. But retrospectively, yeah, I would say maybe I could have better soft skills, but I would also say having soft skills wasn't the top of the list of getting things to do at the time.
Can I say, I don't think that's at the top of players' lists either, to be completely honest. I think, like, I was in camp with Eddie for a couple of years. I always think, you're looking for, out of a coach, what I'm always looking for is ideas, coherent thinking. I want strategic stuff from my coach, and you can see obviously Eddie gives great team talks as well. So, like, to me, a lot of the softer skills, you kind of find that around the group or outside, if I'm being completely honest, and it's not really a place for that. I've heard some chatter around some of the provinces around this, and maybe, trying to make it almost like a workplace, like a normal workplace. So I work in a bank now. Like you couldn't have a HR department. Maybe they do now, but like that's not the place for it. This is like the elite level of sport where it's cutthroat. Every weekend you're getting killed. If you do well, you're the hero, or you're getting cleaned if you're playing badly in the kind of public forum. So it's for warriors there, as far as I'm concerned. So for me, that was never a thing and I think Eddie is very highly regarded amongst the player group. I mean, look, you get things wrong, and it wouldn't have been, the one thing I'd say about Eddie is you knew it wasn't for lack of effort or thinking on it. Like, you can always get these things wrong. It's so hard. Like, we've never ever achieved it in Ireland, really, at a World Cup. We got pretty close the last time out, I think, but we've never done it. So we're still trying to figure this thing out, and there's some brilliant coaches who haven't figured it out yet either. So just thought I'd add that there, sorry.
There's probably one other thing as well, that my appointment was very controversial.
Sure.
Now, this is going back 25 years, and the story went at the time that I was the reason that Warren Gatlin was let go. I was the bad guy, the stabbed him in the back stuff, and that Warren dined out on that for the last 20 years, and but the good news is that the real story has been written about in Brendan Fanning's book, where he explains how that went on. And Keith Wood had a big part to play on the change of guard at that time. And Keith Wood was actually, because he was the Irish captain, he was working it up, because it's not the narrative that I've had to live with for 20 years of being the guy who stabbed the guy in the back. So I used to carry that as well. Yeah. And that was believed for years. It's probably still believed by a lot of people, that because he was left go and I got his job, I was the bad guy. So, that didn't help my reputation either. That was the starting point for me.
Yeah.
So then if I was, a tough character, hard, uncompromising, that all fit into the narrative. I mean, I will leave you one thing. Over the years, I've met people and you'd have a pint with them in a chat, and they'd say, you know what, you're not the bollocks everyone says you are.
You're worse.
You can say that.
That's very interesting. When they win the Grand Slam in 09,
Sorry?
when they win the Grand Slam in 09,
Yeah.
is it incredibly difficult for you to watch that, or where are
Well,
you?
I was incredibly difficult because I thought they were going to lose the fucking thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember.
So, but that's interesting. So you wanted them to win.
Oh, Jesus, yeah. I mean, that group that I coached deserved a Grand Slam.
Okay.
And we went without a whisker in 07 in Croke Park against France. That we had a 1-point lead. We got a penalty. You put it in the corner and milk the clock, but it was 3 minutes on the clock. And if you lose the line out or penalised, then France come up the field, they only want a penalty or a drop goal. So we went for the kick, and Roger nailed it. They were 4 points up. And I remember they kicked off. You could see the video, and Lionel Nally, who played for Biarritz, he was a basketball player, he was about 6'6", went up like a salmon, and he slapped the ball into the middle of the field. He just volleyball started, and it bounced up to one of the French centres, and they had a line break. And in fact, Raj talked to me about this way back. They got up to our line, and Rod's at the back of a ruck, and he went through his head to go through and kill the ball. Just kill it, give the penalty. And he said, Jesus, if I kill this, it's definitely a yellow card. And then we're down to 14 men on our goal line, and if they score, and I'm sitting in the bin, I'll never be forgiven, which is fairly good calculation in my view. But he didn't, and the ball went away, and Vincent Clark got a mismatch between John Hayes and just got around Hayes and scored, and that was it. That was the Grand Slam gone.
Yeah.
So, that team deserved a Grand Slam.
Okay.
And then 08, where we were very poor, I left after 08. We only won 2 games. So 09 was really important for Irish rugby, and that team deserved it. And I remember, after they took the lead, Rog dropped the goal, and then we got upfield, and Paddy Wallace gave away the penalty. I left the room. I thought I was going to throw up at that stage. I left the room, locked the door. I couldn't watch it, and obviously Stephen Jones missed it, and that was it.
Yeah.
But it was that close. But I think that team deserved a Grand Slam. I'd love to have been there for it, but that didn't happen. But they deserved it.
Let's go from one World Cup to another. So 2015, Luke and Ian are roommates. Joe Schmidt's the coach. Rory McIlroy comes to spend some time with the team.
Jeez, we've gone from some real positives to some real negatives here. Yeah, I was glad to be a distraction for the team in what was, those camps. They're a long period of time to be amongst the same group of people and a very kind of intense setting. But yeah, that was actually a tough week. Like I was on the 9 o'clock news, and my granny ringing me, going, "I see you." Like, cause I've been golfing since I'm 10. And
a good golfer at that.
Well, I don't know, not that day.
No, you are.
But yeah, it was mad. Yeah, it was on Sky. It was across the. It's my most viewed as a professional sports person. It's my most viewed clip. By a mile, by a number, about 4 or 5 times my close.
Well, at the time, Joe, as well.
Oh, sorry.
Social media was kind of kicking off, and I was trying to get my Instagram followers up.
Still doing it. Still at that.
Still hard at it.
Ian Madigan 10.
But anyway, we were back in the room, and I convinced Luke to effectively stage that, in front of the mirror. Yeah, after it happened, Rory was just saying, "I'm coming in on the inside a bit too much," and I'm there, video recording it, got it up, and it's the best video I'd ever put out as well.
Well, let's just remind ourselves. So, Rory says, "Does anyone fancy themselves? Does anyone
should have taken credit for those tries? This is a disaster."
Does anyone think they can hit my driver? And Luke Fitzgerald said, "Rory, I can."
This is what I was getting. My best case, it would be great for my roommates.
Look at Rob Carney. So it's the funniest part of that is looking at Rob Carney. He loved that more than I haven't
All
seen
his
him ever.
Christmases came at
Yeah,
once.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Any wins, any big, hiding cups, Grand Slams.
Richie Murphy enjoyed it as well.
Oh, there's a few people really, really loved it, deeply loved it. You know what I mean?
The other thing is, Rory did give Luke another go.
The same thing happened again. Yeah, they were like, "We can't put 2 up." I was like, "Please don't." I was like, "It's a week of this, and that has showed up at everything I've done. It's ridiculous." In work, they get me sometimes to do, I'll host something, so I'll be talking to someone and they'll be like, "Oh, Luke used to play rugby or whatever." I've been working at Dutch Bank, so they haven't got a clue, right? But they show a video always, to say, "Oh, look, this is what he's done or whatever in the past." But they always add that in as well. There's everywhere. Yeah. So it's even followed me into work. You know what I mean? It's not just
in a
outside.
nutshell, we've put our whole life into 2 rugby careers. Luke gets shown the golf video. I have to look at myself crying. So, still get the memes on a Friday, but yeah.
Well, that's a perfect segue. So Johnny Sexton goes off injured against France. Ian Madigan comes on. I guess, it's funny, maybe I'm getting older and softer. I just think this is beautiful now. And maybe sensibilities change. It's like, "Oh, man's crying." I just think this is amazing. And I've got to know you a little bit, so I know how much you love rugby and how important this was. Your whole career, your whole life is building up to this. You're in the shadow of Johnny. That's your lot in life. Johnny's there.
Yep.
He goes off injured in the biggest game, the biggest moment. You come on, and you deliver. So I think you're entitled to these tears. Let's have a look. come here. Is that Sexton in the crowd? You're fist bumping to?
Thank you, Eddie. Gets me every time.
I might need one myself.
Yeah, as I said, Instagram followers through the roof.
I actually cleaned him out of it when he came back in the room. I was like, you
Yeah.
absolute gobshite. I was like, they literally, like Argentina are watching this thing, because we obviously qualified from the group, and we've missed New Zealand in the quarters, and we're like, right, we're game on for this. And I was like, I was sure it was because of that. I don't, maybe it was, who knows what it was. Maybe Ian does, but I remember going, those lads are watching this going, we think we've got through. So we absolutely, I cleaned him out of it in the room. He was like, buddy, it's been an emotional afternoon. Just lay off, will you? But we had some great times. Like it is funny, like, so it is tough to be in those camps sometimes. But like, you get a few roomies, like, we'd be friends forever now off the back of it. But it was great times. Yeah, funny watching them.
Why were you so emotional, do you think?
I think, like you touched on it there, like you've kind of been doubted. There was a lot of chat before the World Cup, if Johnny goes down. He was carrying a couple of injuries from having played in France. Was it going to be me backing Johnny up or Paddy at the time? So yeah, you're kind of question mark. If Johnny does go down, we're not going to be able to progress through the World Cup. And then ironically, it was in the stadium, like, and Luke will know this. Like when you're giving like tickets to your friends and family, especially in a competition like the World Cup, you don't get to see them afterwards because you're back onto the team bus, back to the hotel. So, yeah, my mum had a big flag and spotted her. So, yeah, still gets me.
So then there's the famous Argentina game where Ireland are kind of walking wounded, down 5 or 6 of their best players. You start. You're on the bench. We're going to show your tries, by the way, that Eddie mentioned.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's not all bad. You're not happy that you're on the bench, though. You think, and you didn't know it at the time, but this is your last game for Ireland. Injury would unfortunately come in the not so distant future. But you're pretty peeved on that bench.
Yeah, no, I am. I mean, I'd had a like Joe Schmidt's kind of not always a guy you'd kind of approach with feedback. It's usually it's a bit of a one-way street, and he's kind of a fearsome enough guy. Like, it's funny, sometimes it's not the bigger guys. It's some of the, he's a bit of a stat machine. He's really articulate, and like, you better, if you're coming with him, coming at him, you better have a very coherent argument yourself. And I kind of gave it to him when he didn't pick me. I said, I think you're making a massive mistake here. I think you're going to get exposed defensively. And that was kind of what I based it on.
Who was ahead of you?
Let's not get into that, Joe. I just said, I think it's a mistake, which is a big thing to say to Joe. And look, it was devastating for us to go out in that fashion. But to me, I suppose, like, you go your whole life trying to get into the team, and I always had kind of fairly lofty goals from an early stage. I was kind of pushed to do that at home. So being in the Irish team and all those, I kind of expect, like, it's a weird thing to say, but I kind of expected to be there. I was in line with what I had set out in my goals for a very long period of time, and I had never really achieved, in my eyes, like anything kind of significant. So coming on at a time when the team was under pressure and kind of producing a pretty good performance, that meant a massive amount to me. Even though I was devastated we went out, I still could go away saying, okay, well, when I retired, that was the kind of thing I hung on. I was kind of saying, well, look, it's okay. I've achieved something, that was really difficult to do. And I kind of, in my own eyes, it made it actually easier to retire at that point, even though I was kind of like 28.
Yeah.
It's a funny, that game means a lot to me, actually.
No, I get it, but it's interesting. Yeah. Like, Eddie didn't know we were going to talk about it, but straight away we were talking about your debut, and straight away he went to, but you know what, 15, I remember. Like, you're doing it on a big world stage. When you tell Joe Schmidt he's about to be exposed, what does he say to you?
I don't think so.
Okay. But does he get angry?
No, he didn't get angry.
Okay.
No, he didn't. Look, it's obviously, like, there's emotions wrapped up week to week in rugby camps, and Eddie will know this. Like, he's got to say it to 15 guys that they're not they're not starting the match, and trying to keep everyone happy in a camp is very, very difficult. So the conversations are ongoing, and I think most coaches, when you challenge them on something like that, I'm sure he could probably see that. He was picking the guy, it was Dave Carney was ahead of me, but he was picking him because Dave was playing, he was red hot at the time, brilliant under the high ball, which is a massive part of Joe's game. So you could clearly see why he was picking him. And Dave was a great player, but I think he's having those conversations all the time, and you do still want. I think I've always thought about, if I was in a coach's situation, you want people to care. You want them to be hurting. Obviously, that has to translate the next day into a good training session, so you prepare the team correctly. And to me, that's what being a good teammate is, and being a good squad person. And they're the people you want. You want people challenging you as well. And I felt that I'd never done that with him.
Yeah.
But in fairness, I hadn't really been in that situation with him that often anyway. He generally did, for the most part, pick me when I was fit. So no, he didn't have a problem with it,
Okay.
I don't think.
Let's have a look.
Madigan getting it wide. Henshaw releases Luke Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald cuts back. Ireland going to get themselves on the board. And what a well-deserved try it is. Well, they haven't had many opportunities, but my goodness me, they needed that one. And they took
Actually, we were just saying it was a lovely pass by Madigan, and I actually should have passed that to Conor Murray, but pulled the ears back. But Robbie Henshaw takes a lovely line in there as well. It's all the little subtle parts. This we were discussing before we came on is definitely a forward pass.
Nah, it's not. No, it's not.
But no, look, they're great times. Like, you remember, you see like being able to do those things and have all the emotion. Is that Eddie O'Sullivan, is it? Sorry, Eddie. No, but we sorry, way less hair. That's very harsh. But that's the great thing about sports. You don't often see, I think, that be able to kind of give that emotion to people. You see Eddie in the stands and all the joy it brings you. They're great days. I haven't looked back on those things in such a long time. They're great days.
So like out of school, literally into the Irish team, and the Lions in '09 is a really big thing to do. The Grand Slams are a really big thing to do. There's lots of bad injuries in the midst of it all, but Leinster, their European Cups are a really big thing to do, and you've that game there, which is important to you. And then, boom, the shutters come down at 28, 29. And I remember interviewing you not long after you'd announced your retirement. And I was blown away by how positive and sanguine and philosophical and stoic you were about it all. And I remember thinking, this guy is in denial. At some stage in the next year, it's going to hit him and he's going to get, angry or bitter or really upset about the whole thing. Did that ever happen in your early 30s as you watched your friends, people the same age as you, older than you, having these great experiences and you're working in a bank?
That was nice. You got me at the end there. I think, look, they're definitely difficult times. You'd be envious of people still doing it, but I think I probably had to deal with coming close to retirement a few times anyway. So maybe that probably helped a little bit. I always felt like my career was never the same after I did a big leg injury when I was 21 when I came back from the Lions tour. And I was never really the same. And that probably hurt more. Do you know that kind of way when you're kind of I got back to a good level, but never really got to where I wanted to go. I suppose, and the point I was making previously about the Argentina game, that did cushion the blow a little bit too. I kind of said, well, I've got the medals, I've done a bit of that, so that's been great. I've had those great days out. But have I ever kind of achieved, was there a big day where I ever really kind of took over a game or was really good? In my own mind, I always felt I was capable of doing that. And I think that was important for me, personally, And then, look, I think as well, I was never really, my personality and those things was never really wrapped up in the rugby thing. I had a lot of, I have a very close friend group from school. We literally don't talk to anyone else, typical Black Rock lads. But, we're really close. So I wasn't always wrapped up in that. I didn't lose. You hear people saying when they leave that they, the locker room, they really miss that tightness in there, that kind of, you have that. Everyone is in there trying to achieve the same thing. There's a soul, there's a real focus in the group, but there's also great fun. And a lot of their friends are there. And when you leave the change room, you're gone. You're out of the WhatsApp group. It's all, it's all happens and you're kind of cut off. And I think that is really difficult, whereas I probably didn't have to deal with that as much. And maybe that's a combination of things as well, Joe. But there's definitely tough times. like 28 is not. You didn't, you know, I didn't foresee that. Even with all the injuries, I kind of thought I'd just kind of keep going on. But there's a few of those factors I think that definitely helped.
I didn't know that about the injury at 21. So what's an example? You lost a step or a yard or?
It was a really serious. I did everything on the outside of my knee, and it was just a really it was. Quade Cooper just slipped as I was coming to tackle him. He kind of saw me late, ducked, that was it. That was kind of like my career was never the same again. So it's funny how life works like that, isn't it? Just a moment changes the trajectory of what you're doing, you know. But I can look back at it as well and say, like, coming back from those things was really like they're great experiences to go on. Like, I don't really think when I look back at my career, and I'd be interested to hear what the lads say as well, that you don't really think sometimes about the medals. Like, you know, the piss-ups are great after it. You kind of remember them, but it's more the journey. It's the everyday kind of struggle, and then the great days and the fun parts of it. It's the journey that you go on. The journey back from some of those things, I really take a lot from that. I feel like it builds up a real resilience in you, just for your life generally. You know, everyone has challenges, but kind of coping with them and getting back to a good level, I can kind of hang my hat in those things too. So that always helps a little bit too.
I think like talking about the journey there, like obviously I was alongside Luke and with Leinster and Ireland. Some of my best highlights were playing alongside you. But having seen Luke go through that process and through that journey, like he had that big knee injury, significant neck injury as well, and then for large parts was battling with kind of ab injury, groin injuries. So his like normal week of training was very different to mine, for example, where I didn't have many big injuries. You're doing an hour of rehab before every pitch session, but it does take its toll on you, you know, over a year, over 5 years, over a 10-year career, that it was a real challenge. But the resilience that Luke showed through that period was phenomenal, and he deserved that big day against Argentina.
You could kind of divide your career into two halves in a way. The Leinster years till about 27?
17,
yeah. 150 appearances still for Leinster and 31 appearances for Ireland as well. So they're like really good numbers. You could have sat tight and you instead went off Bordeaux and Bristol and Ulster. Do you regret that? Is that the best thing you ever did? Why did you go? Were you unhappy at Leinster? Were you getting fed up with this?
I don't regret it. Like, and I'd be strong-willed, similar to Luke, in the sense that, you know, every decision I make, if I'm the one who's made it, it's the right one for me, and I will make it work. Small part of me still looks back and the Grand Slam that was won in 2018, could you have been part of that? Could you have been part of the 2019 World Cup? But you can't live two lives. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. Great experience living in France, the journey I was on in Bristol, loved the end of my career in Ulsters. And I'm very grateful for that as opposed to looking at what I missed. Very much a kind of glass half full kind of guy. I suppose the decision I made, you know, we've touched on it, living in Johnny's shadow. You're not the shot caller week in, week out. You're not necessarily in the strategy meetings working hand in hand with the coaches. And when that happens over a season, over 3 seasons, over 5 seasons, you really want it, you crave it. You want to be the guy calling the shots. And Bordeaux gave me that opportunity. And look, that move in particular didn't work out for a few different reasons. My body didn't hold up over there, picked up a few injuries. The top 14's a really challenging league. I went into a team that was very much in transition. We had three head coaches over that season. So I think regardless who went in there, they were going to have a tough job in their hands. But then moving on to Bristol, while I signed, when they were effectively relegated when I signed, so they were going down from the Premiership to the Championship. But what appealed to me at that stage was going and being part of a project and being back in a structured environment. I was very naive when I was in Leinster in the sense that I thought every rugby club was going to be run very similarly. Having experienced 4 different clubs, they're all run very, very differently. And France was a significant contrast to Leinster. And I'd like to have viewed myself as a really professional player, very diligent with my rehab, my gym. Would have lent a lot on the strength and conditioning staff, the physio staff, the masseuse staff, and that's what worked for me. But I didn't have that in France. You know, I had to get external people to help me, bring in a masseuse to the house. And I was flying back to Ireland to do rehab because the quality wasn't there in France. So what really appealed to me was getting back into that structured environment. And Pat Lam sold me a 3-year project of getting back into the Premiership and climbing our way up and being a Champions Cup side, which we did in the large part, and I loved that experience.
Yeah. Because we were messaging earlier on, and I was just saying, anything from your career you want to chat about? And I was just struck by something you said, where you said, I know the second half of my career was a letdown, but I'm comfortable talking about that. And I was like, a letdown? It's a heavy way to categorize it.
Yeah, like...
Not in your wallet.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, like,
sorry, Mads.
No,
You've
no,
been so
you're,
nice
you're
to me
fine.
tonight. I'll stop.
You've said far worse to me. Like when I signed with Bordeaux, they just got into the Champions Cup. You had dreams of winning the top 14, and it didn't work out. The second half of the season, while we got off to a good start, and I remember like the first game we played Racing, they just won the top 14, full stadium, head to head against Dan Carter. We come out on top, and you're top of the world. You're thinking, oh, this is going to be a great season. But when the wheels come off in France, they come off in dramatic fashion, and I experienced it.
So, like, what does that mean? Just down tools?
So, yeah, the players wanted the coach out. So some of them weren't trying a yard. There was very little structure in our week with our training. So you've 100 things that you need to work on, and you're trying to pick the 2 or 3 that are going to make an impact for that week, and then you're hoping to compound them. But there's also like the style that we had in Leinster. We were very straight with each other. We'd call each other out. The video sessions were absolutely brutal at times. But that's how we progressed, and that's why we won trophies. That style in France doesn't work, and I've tried it. Yeah, like bollocking the forwards in a meeting, saying, "Well, I was calling for that ball there. You can't cut me off." You can't do that in France. It just doesn't work. And I lost a few of the French guys in the changing room early doors. It took a long time to kind of win them back. And then look, I got injured, struggled to get over the injury, moved on to Bristol. But even the tail end of my Bristol career, like there was Callum Sheedy had passed me out, and look, Sheedy's gone on and played for Wales, but I would have liked to think, where I was leaving Leinster and Ireland, I'd reached a high bar. I struggled to maintain that, and while I was on a kind of project journey in Bristol, we got promoted from the championship, which look was no great achievement. We had a star-studded side. The first year in the Premiership went really well. We were kind of mid-table from being a team that was always a yo-yo side. But ironically, like now I talk about how I think Ireland should adapt their game and how certain players aren't adapting their game. I'm talking about that because I didn't adapt my own game well enough. Like when I was in Bristol, what worked for me in Leinster and Ireland was I was a running out half. I had a good show and go game, but I was never a particularly good tactical kicker. But we're midway through that first season, and teams were figuring out how to play against us. We didn't have the strongest of packs. We needed to keep the ball in front of us. I didn't do it, and paid the price for it ultimately at the end of that season. And then even when I moved to Ulster, there was parts that I look back on and gone, if I had my time again, I would have just probably done what the coaches were trying to do a bit more, but I was still trying to input my own philosophy on what had worked for me previously. And maybe that's why I like being a pundit now.
Very good. Fellas, fascinating to get memories of different parts of your career. A round of applause for Luke, Ian, and everybody.